The gleaming corporate headquarters of TechVision Solutions buzzed with excitement. Investors and press filled the main conference room, all eager to witness what was being called the tech IPO of the year. I adjusted my glasses and slipped into a seat at the back, just another face in the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, the investment banker announced, please welcome TechVision's founder and CEO, Andrew Porter. My ex-husband strode onto the stage like he owned the world. In his $5,000 suit and perfectly styled hair, he looked every bit the successful tech entrepreneur. The audience burst into applause. My name is Olivia Chen, and 5 years ago, Andrew Porter stole my dream. TechVision's revolutionary AI-driven security system, Andrew began, his voice filled with practiced charm, represents a complete paradigm shift in how we protect sensitive data. Our proprietary algorithms can predict and prevent cyber attacks before they happen. I pulled out my tablet and opened my email, checking the timestamp one more time, 3:45 p.m. In 15 minutes, everything would change. The journey hasn't been easy, Andrew continued, clicking through his presentation slides. When I first conceived of predictive cybersecurity, everyone said it was impossible. But through sheer determination and countless sleepless nights of coding, we proved them wrong. I had to bite back a laugh. Those sleepless nights of coding have been mine, hunched over my laptop in our small apartment while Andrew told me I was wasting my time. Nobody's going to buy security software from a woman, he'd said. Especially not in this industry. Back then, I'd been working as a cybersecurity analyst at a major bank, spending my free time developing my idea for an AI-driven security system. Andrew had been between startups, living off my salary while he networked at tech industry parties. The core of our technology, Andrew was saying, lies in our unique approach to machine learning. Our algorithms don't just react to threats, they learn, adapt, and evolve. My algorithms, the ones I'd spent 3 years developing, testing, refining. The ones stored on my laptop, which had mysteriously crashed the day after Andrew moved out. He'd offered to take a look at it before he left. I declined. What he didn't know was that I'd already seen the signs. The late-night phone calls he thought I couldn't hear. The sudden interest in my work after years of dismissing it. The way he'd started asking detailed questions about my development process. So I'd taken precautions. TechVision's technology is protected by multiple patents, Andrew said proudly, displaying a slide showing his patent numbers. Our intellectual property portfolio is rock solid. I checked my phone again, 3:55 p.m. In 5 minutes, my lawyer would be delivering some very interesting documents to the SEC and the Patent Office. Now, Andrew continued, I'm excited to announce that following today's IPO, we'll be expanding into the European market. Our projections show. He stopped mid-sentence as the door opened and a man in a suit entered, whispering something to the investment banker. The banker's face went pale. Mr. Porter, he said quietly, we need to pause the presentation. There's been a development. Andrew's confident smile faltered slightly. Whatever it is can wait. We're in the middle off. Sir, the man in the suit interrupted. The SEC has just received a patent challenge. They're halting the IPO pending investigation. The room erupted in murmurs. Investors began checking their phones. Reporters started typing frantically. That's impossible, Andrew snapped. Our patents are solid. Who's making this challenge? That was my cue. I stood up, removing my glasses. I am. Andrew's face went from confused to shocked to pale as he recognized me. Olivia, what are you? Hello, Andrew, I said, my voice carrying in the now quiet room. It's been a while. I walked to the front of the room, pulling out my tablet, 5 years to be exact. Since the day you left with a copy of my source code and a dream of becoming a tech CEO. This is ridiculous, he sputtered. Security, get her out of here. I wouldn't, I said calmly, not unless you want to explain to these investors why you're trying to silence the original patent holder of your core technology. I connected my tablet to the presentation screen. The room gasped as my documentation appeared. Patent filings dated 3 years before TechVision's original source code commits, development logs, and most damaging of all, emails from Andrew himself discussing how to steal and repurpose my work. You see, I continued, while you were busy filing patents on stolen technology, I was building a paper trail. Every development log, every test result, every piece of code, all authenticated and timestamped. And now, just as you're about to cash in on my work, it's time for the truth to come out. Andrew's face had gone from pale to red. You're lying. I developed this technology myself. Everyone knows. Everyone knows what you told them. I cut in. But the evidence tells a different story. Would you like me to walk through the code base? Explain how the neural network architecture works? Because I can you? The investment banker was frantically reading something on his phone. Mr. Porter, the SEC filing. These documents, they appear legitimate. Of course they're legitimate, I said. Just like the cease and desist order your legal team should be receiving right about now. Right on cue, Andrew's phone buzzed. He looked at it, and I saw the moment he realized everything was falling apart. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. The next hour in that conference room was like watching a castle made of sand crumble under an incoming tide. As I walked the audience through my documentation, Andrew's carefully constructed facade began to crack. The neural network architecture, I explained, pulling up the original code, was designed to mimic human intuition and pattern recognition. Each layer learns from previous cyber attacks to predict future vectors. An investor in the front row leaned forward. This is remarkably similar to TechVision's current system. Identical, actually, I corrected. Down to the comment structure in the code. Andrew didn't even bother to change my variable names. Andrew, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly found his voice. This proves nothing. Anyone could have written similar code. The concept of AI-driven security was obvious. Then explain how it works, I challenged. Explain the quantum-resistant encryption protocol I embedded in the third layer. Explain why I chose a modified sigmoid function for the neural activation. His face went blank. The room grew quiet, waiting for his response. That's proprietary information, he stammered. Actually, I said, pulling up another document, it's all detailed in my original patent filing. The one I submitted 3 years before TechVision even existed. The investment banker was huddled with his legal team in the corner, their faces growing more concerned by the minute. One of them approached Andrew, whispering urgently in his ear. This is the shakedown, Andrew announced, trying to regain control. She's my ex-wife, obviously bitter about our divorce, trying to extort money from a successful company. I held up my hand. Let me stop you right there. This isn't about money, Andrew. It's about truth. About credit where it's due. I turned to address the room. 5 years ago, this man stole my work, my dreams, and tried to build his success on my innovation. Today, I'm taking it back. Taking it back? Andrew laughed, but there was an edge of panic in his voice. You can't just walk in here and... Actually, I can. I interrupted, nodding to my lawyer who had just entered the room. The patent office has already initiated an investigation. The SEC is halting the IPO pending their findings. And most importantly, I paused, savoring the moment. I've just acquired controlling interest in TechVision Solutions. The room erupted in chaos. Andrew's face went from red to white. That's impossible, he whispered. The majority shares are held by venture capital firms. Were held, I corrected, until this morning when Quantum Ventures acquired their positions. Would you like to know who owns Quantum Ventures, Andrew? I didn't wait for his response. I pulled up the final document, incorporation papers showing me as the sole owner of Quantum Ventures, the investment firm that had just become TechVision's majority shareholder. You see, I continued, while you were busy playing tech CEO, I was building something of my own. A venture capital firm specializing in cybersecurity startups. We've been quietly acquiring shares in TechVision for the past year, waiting for this moment. The investment banker approached, his face grim. Mr. Porter, given these developments, we have no choice but to suspend the IPO proceedings. The SEC will want to. This is a trick, Andrew interrupted, his voice rising. A manipulation. You can't just walk in here and destroy everything I've built. Everything you built? I repeated softly. Let's talk about what you actually built, Andrew. A house of cards based on stolen technology. A reputation built on lies. And now, I smiled, it's all coming down. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, press conferences, and corporate restructuring. TechVision's board of directors held an emergency meeting where, faced with overwhelming evidence, they voted to remove Andrew as CEO. I sat in what had been Andrew's office, now mine, reviewing the damage he'd done to my original code. He'd made changes over the years, but they were mostly superficial, like putting a new paint job on a stolen car. Ms. Chen, my assistant, poked her head in. Andrew's lawyers are here. They say they have a proposal. I nodded, not looking up from my computer. Send them in. Two expensive suits entered, carrying briefcases and concerned expressions. I recognized them from our divorce 5 years ago. They'd been just as condescending then. Mrs. Porter, one began. Ms. Chen, I corrected, finally looking up. What can I do for you, gentlemen? They exchanged glances before the older one spoke. Our client is prepared to make a very generous settlement offer in exchange for dropping the patent challenge and signing an NDA about the origins of the technology. He's willing to offer $20 million. I actually laughed. $20 million. For technology that's worth billions, that's currently protecting the data of Fortune 500 companies worldwide. $30 million then, the younger lawyer jumped in. Plus a public statement acknowledging your contributions. I stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the city. Let me be clear, this isn't about money. It's about recognition, about justice. Your client didn't just steal my code. He tried to erase me from my own creation's history. Ms. Chen, the older lawyer said carefully, litigation could take years. The publicity could damage the company's value. The company's value is already damaged, I cut in, because it was built on lies. But I'm going to fix that. Starting today. I turned back to them. Here's my counter offer. Andrew admits publicly to stealing my technology, resigns from the board, and transfers all his remaining shares to a foundation I'm establishing to support women in tech. In exchange, I don't press criminal charges for intellectual property theft. They stared at me, clearly not expecting this response. That's everything he has left, the younger one protested. No, I said quietly. What he had was an opportunity to build something legitimate, to be a real partner in innovation. Instead, he chose to steal and lie. These are the consequences. After they left, I called an all-hands meeting. The company's employees needed to hear the truth from me directly. Standing on the same stage where Andrew had tried to launch his IPO weeks earlier, I looked out at hundreds of nervous faces. TechVision isn't going anywhere, I began. The technology works. I should know, I created it. But we're going to rebuild this company on a foundation of truth and innovation, not lies and theft. I clicked through slides showing my original development work, the evolution of the technology, and our path forward. Some of you may have questions about your jobs, about the future. Let me be clear, if you're here to innovate, to create, to make the digital world safer, you have a place here. If you're here because Andrew promised you riches based on stolen work, well, there's the door. Over the next few months, we transformed TechVision. I brought in my own team from Quantum Ventures, promoted talented developers who'd been overlooked under Andrew's leadership, and refocused the company on genuine innovation. The press couldn't get enough of the story. Tech's greatest heist exposed, read one headline. Woman reclaims stolen innovation, proclaimed another. I did select interviews, not to gloat, but to send a message to other women in tech. Don't let anyone steal your dreams. 1 year later, we finally had our IPO. The company, now renamed Chen Security Solutions, was valued at 3 times what TechVision had been. More importantly, we built something real, something honest. As for Andrew, last I heard, he was trying to launch a new startup, but investors were wary. It turned out having a reputation for stealing intellectual property wasn't great for attracting funding. The day after our successful IPO, I received a package. Inside was a familiar laptop, my old one that had mysteriously crashed 5 years ago. With it was a note in Andrew's handwriting. You were right. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I plugged in the laptop, not surprised to find that the hard drive had been wiped. But it didn't matter anymore. The truth had come out, justice had been served, and I had built something far greater than Andrew could have imagined. That evening, I sat in my office, looking at a photo from graduate school. Me at my first hackathon, beaming with pride over code I'd written. I thought about that young woman, so full of dreams and determination, and wished I could tell her that everything would work out better than she could imagine. My phone buzzed. A message from my new head of development. The quantum encryption upgrade is ready for testing. Want to take a look? I smiled, opening my laptop. This was what real innovation felt like, not stolen dreams and borrowed glory, but genuine creation and honest achievement. On my way, I replied, heading to the development floor where my team waited. This was my company now, built on truth, run with integrity, and changing the future of cybersecurity. And the best part, I didn't have to hide in anyone's shadow anymore. The story of how Andrew Porter stole my technology would always be part of my history, but it wasn't my future. My future was in the lines of code I was writing, in the innovations we were creating, and in the example we were setting for the next generation of women in tech. Sometimes I realized you have to lose everything to gain something greater. You have to have your dreams stolen to learn how to build them stronger. And sometimes justice comes not in the form of revenge, but in the simple power of truth finally being heard.